We're live.
All right. All right. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Siege Podcast, a weekly show where we preview the sports week ahead from a betting perspective. I'm your host, Travis Harris, and joining me today are Devin Hadley, James Roth, and Jordan Hadley. Before we get started, I wanted to give a quick background on Siege and how we came to be. We started 5 years ago or so, just in a group chat talking about games, lines, overs, unders, you name it. Anything that had to do with betting on sports, we were talking about it. We were sharing research. We were sharing trends. We were talking bets and good bets, bad beats, you name it. And over the years, we realized we started becoming pretty good at this, and we were turning a profit year after year. So we created the Twitter account to send out free picks and help others win money, because after all, it's us against the casinos. Usually we look at sending out plays, especially for college football, which is our bread and butter, that and college basketball. We'll look to send out plays Sunday, Monday, as soon as lines come out. It's so important to jump on lines as soon as they come out to take advantage of as much value as we possibly can. As we look at the previous week, you can see there are some bad beats. The one that comes to mind, because it hit me pretty hard, was the over in the Oregon-Ohio State game at 63.5. That line, or that game, ended at 63, of course, which was 3 to 4 points higher than where it came out at. So if I would have gotten it earlier, I would have been cashing that ticket instead of being left with a dud. So anyone else do you guys have anything you want to add about Siege and what we do and how we do it?
You pretty much covered it there, Trav. Let's make some money.
All right, thanks. All right, so let's get into what we really came here to talk about, and let's start off with previewing the previous week. Anyone have any key takeaways or notice any trends or anything surprise you this last week? Jordan, how about you? Anything come to mind?
Washington is one of the worst football teams I've ever seen. Michigan was free money, as we were all on. Siege had another profitable week. Sparty looked good. That's another game around this week. I like Sparty this week. Profitable week, nothing crazy, but I think we had a pretty good record.
But that's what I had written down here too, is Washington is really, really bad on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And we actually, as you kind of alluded to, we do have a premium play in that game coming up this week. So make sure to reach out to us and we'd be happy to give that to you, anyone listening. But we're looking to fade Washington as many times as possible this year. How about you, James? Anything that catch your eye from this last week? Any takeaways? Anything that surprised you?
Couple. I would say, as you mentioned in the Oregon-Ohio State game, what a huge overreaction to that Oregon performance week one. That line should have been nowhere near. It was like 13.5, 14.5. Just ridiculous. You know, so disrespectful to Oregon. And obviously it showed. And obviously Ohio State is definitely mortal this year. So, being a Michigan fan, that makes me happy. So I will also say Buffalo is a disaster. They no longer circle the wagons like the Buffalo Bulls should. So look to fade them, in my opinion. So those are my couple big ones there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't believe when I saw that Oregon-Ohio State line come out around 14. It stayed there all week. It didn't go up. It didn't go down. I hammered Oregon with you, and we were looking at cashing a nice ticket there. How about you, Dev? Anything from the previous week that stood out, or any surprises?
I will say Kansas surprised me how well they moved the ball against Coastal. I don't know if that has more to say about how improved Kansas is or how bad Coastal's defense is. That'll be something to keep an eye on going forward. Another thing is UConn is as bad as we thought. They are awful. And if they're, an underdog of 30 or less, you have to take the other team. I mean, they're an automatic fade every week. They're that bad. One of the worst I've
Yeah.
seen in a long time.
I think they're 34.5 this week. I can't think of who they're
Yeah.
against.
Vegas is catching up. I think it's time to stop fading them. That's probably about right. But they were way too low of a underdog against Fresno, and way too low of an underdog against Purdue. They're very bad.
Yeah. You bring up a good point in Kansas and Coastal. Hopefully, we as Siege, we sent out Coastal as a 2-unit play last week at -26. And, we just barely hit that. So hopefully anyone listening got that with us at 26. I think it's a little bit of both, Dev. I think it's, Kansas is surprisingly playing a lot better. And I'm going to touch on this actually later when we get to our best bets of the week. But they're playing a lot better. They got a new coach. They got some new players in the portal. And I think that Coastal defense is not where it was last year. They lost some guys on that side of the ball, but that was definitely a surprising game to me that they didn't just completely rout Kansas. So like you said, it'd be interesting to keep an eye on Kansas to see what they do going forward. Let's take a look at the week ahead. A lot of marquee top 25 matchups. But let's start with noon game, MSU +6 or 6.5, depending on what book you're looking at Miami. Three of us on here are Spartan fans. We love to see a Michigan win, of course. But what you guys have some thoughts on that game?
Yeah, love Sparty this week. I bought it to 7 myself just to be safe. Always buy the football lines. But also got to sprinkle the money line, I love the dogs. There's a lot of dogs, so
A lot of
that's
dogs.
the
Good. Yeah, no, should be a good game. Should be interesting. I think Michigan State's getting down there a little bit earlier than they normally would, just to kind of get acclimated to that heat, because that's different, playing down in the Florida heat and humidity than way different than we have up here in Michigan, of course. So hopefully that bodes well for them. Let's take a look at, we've got, of course, the number one matchup of the weekend. Number 1, Alabama at number 11, Florida. Florida's getting 15.5. I think I saw that move to 14.5 actually earlier today. So some money coming in on Florida, which actually surprises me. Everyone and their mom is going to be betting this game because it's 3:30 game, middle of the afternoon, number 1 versus number 11. You're going to see a lot of public money on this game, which I tend to stay away from those games just because the line doesn't move, or it's just a trap game, I think. Dev, do you have any thoughts on Alabama, Florida? Any leans you'd have, or are you staying away as well?
Complete stay away from me. It's one I would never touch. It's just one, it's gonna be betted down too much. There's too much traffic on it, like you said. Big public game, and we just don't know enough about either team yet. I mean, Alabama we know is very good, but they have a new starting quarterback playing on the road in a hostile environment for the first time in his life. And Florida also has a new quarterback this year. Kyle Trask left. He was very productive for them. They have a lot of new players. Too many unknowns right now, and there's no value on either side. It's just a complete guess. So definitely staying away.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. James, how about you? Anything on that game?
I'll just make one little note. Florida's defense is one of the most penalized units in the league, or in the country so far this year. So I think you're going to see Alabama kind of exploit some things there, and they're usually typically a pretty disciplined team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida have some penalties, keep some drives alive for Alabama, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the over hit in that game. I think Bama's defense kind of takes a few steps back this year with what they've lost. They just haven't obviously played anybody yet for us to see that. Florida's offense is much improved, although they haven't really played much either in Florida Atlantic or South Florida. So if I were to take anything in that game, I think it'd be the over. I think there was a stat out there that the last 5 or 6 whatever overs between Alabama and Florida have hit. So but that again, like you mentioned, it's going to be saturated. It's going to be probably bet up. So you may, if you didn't jump on it early, it may be too late. So I'm also not going to jump anything on it, but those are just a couple of notes that I had.
Yeah, so sometimes, and it took me a long time to understand this concept, but just because there's a game on and it's on TV doesn't mean you have to bet it. Part of being a good bettor is understanding your bankroll and knowing where to play and when to just let it go. Moving on to another top 25 matchup for this year, or for this week, excuse me. Auburn +6 at Penn State. That's another top 25 matchup. Jordan, I know you have a play to talk about for your best bets later on in this game, but what are your thoughts, Jordan, as we look at this one?
I'm definitely leaning under 53 in that game. It's a whiteout at Penn State. You know what that means. Hostile environment. I don't think Bo Nix can handle it. They haven't been very impressive. Offense looks not good at all. And Penn State's offense was terrible. And you remember that first game against Indiana, it was 0-0 at halftime. I expect this to be very low scoring. I don't expect Bo Nix to do much. He's not going to be able to hear himself call plays, really. That's how loud it'll be in there. You got to think, last year without fans, we missed that. It plays a big factor in a lot of these games, especially prime time at home. I mean, I don't think many points will be scored. So I'm going under 53.
Yeah, no, I like it. When I think about this game, I instantly think of Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and I turned on the TV and I saw Enter Sandman and that whole stadium just juke and like you said, we didn't have that last year. So that's when we're taking a look at these lines going forward and for the whole year, we have to remember that home field advantage does play a huge piece in betting in college sports, both football and basketball. So thanks, Jordan. Let's move on to our
Trev, I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
Auburn, 9.84 yards per play right now, Jordan. So their offense has been actually pretty good. But they played Akron and an FCS team, I think. So you're right. I mean, we don't know enough about them. Right now, their defense is also number one in yards per play given up. But again, they haven't played anyone. I think, that being said, I think we're seeing a little bit too much in Auburn's favor. If anything, I would take Penn State in this game. I'm not really sure on it. I think you're on the right track there, but I would stay away from that myself. But if anything, I would take Penn State because they've had to play some competition already. Wisconsin, they win at Wisconsin. Wisconsin may not be as good as what we thought they were, but either way, winning at Wisconsin is always going to be an impressive victory. So I would lean Penn State here myself. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, thanks. I didn't mean to skip over you, James. Thanks for speaking up. A lot of great information there for sure. So continuing with looking at this week, let's move over to our underdog segment. As Jordan said, we've got a ton of dogs barking this week. And we like a number of them. I'll start off. I've been big into Charlotte these last couple of years. Their quarterback, his name's escaped me right now, but I mean, the guy just lights it up on field and they play fast and they look to move the ball quickly and score a lot. And Georgia State, they have a good defense, but they lost all but one guy coming on their D line. So I think Charlotte should be able to move the ball pretty well and pretty effectively here. They're getting 4.5. I'm always in favor of taking the points where you can get them, especially in college football. But I'd look to sprinkle some on the money line here. James, what do you got? Do you have anything for our underdog segment?
Well, underdog, that was going to be mine, Trav. So I'm with you. Chris Reynolds, stud. Georgia State, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you saw the video, their coach just beats crap out of him for the game to try and hype him up, right? That was a Georgia State guy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
I mean, they have that going for them. But other than that, I would take Charlotte for sure with the points. That's for sure my underdog, no doubt.
Yeah. Good. How about you, Dev? What do you got?
In that game, I don't have a lean in that game, to be honest. I know you guys like Charlotte. I'm not as high on Charlotte as you guys are. I do think they're well coached. I do like the quarterback, but I just don't think they're very good, to be honest. I know they had a nice win against Duke, but I think Duke's terrible. One of the worst teams in Power 5. However, I don't think Georgia State's very good either. So, I mean, you guys are so confident in this that I might actually sprinkle myself, but I don't really have a lean either way.
Yeah. And that's what we're all about. If we had $1 for every time that one of us talked to another one of us into betting a game, we might have half our losses back. So, how about you, Dev, on your underdog segment? Do you have anyone jump out to you or no?
As an underdog pick,
Yeah.
I do love Virginia. I got it at plus 9.5 earlier in the week. It's plus 8 right now. I still like them anything over 7. It's a classic case of Virginia's a little bit undervalued. They're coming off a 28-point win against Illinois. And I know Illinois is not very good, but it's still, that's an impressive win to beat a Big Ten team by 4 touchdowns. And also North Carolina. Sam Howell, I do think he's very good, don't get me wrong, but they lost so much and they have not looked impressive at all. I don't trust them right now. I think they're overvalued by the public and Virginia's undervalued. So that line should be more like 4 or 5, maybe 6. And there's some value there. I'm taking Virginia.
Yeah. All good points. How about you, Jordan? Underdog segment. What do you got?
It goes back to my fade Washington play. I'm taking Arkansas State plus 17.
All right. I like it. Remember I said we've got a premium play in that game, and it's not Washington. So anyone listening, you know what we're on. All right. Everyone's favorite segment of the week. Let's go to our locks of the week. What we're going to do is every one of us are going to pick 3 games. We're going to keep a tally throughout the season. Talked about maybe the loser each week having to do some sort of punishment. Not sure what it is. Maybe shotgun beer, although that doesn't sound like much of a punishment. But to do it on camera, who knows? Sounds like fun, actually. So let's roll right into it. James, you want to kick us off? What are your 3 locks of the week?
Sure. I'll start with We Are Marshall. Got a -9 in the week. I think it's 10.5 now. Still like it probably at 10. So buy that hook. Defensively, giving up about 3.78 yards per play. Offensively, moving the ball 7 yards per play. East Carolina, not very good offensively, although they played a little bit better competition than Marshall has so far this year. I still like Marshall in this matchup. I also have UCF -7 against Louisville. Same thing, yards per play, 7.27 for UCF. Louisville has given up over 6, close to 7. So I like UCF to be able to move the ball. Louisville looked very bad against Ole Miss. So not to say that UCF is as good as Ole Miss, but I think, whenever you're playing against that Central Florida offense, you better come ready, and their defense just isn't going to be anywhere near what it needs to be to try and cover in that game. So I also like the under 56.5 in the Iowa-Kent State game. Looks like the juice is actually on the over right now, so it may go up a little bit, but I wouldn't see it go up too much. Iowa, they don't really move the ball very quickly or use big plays. So I see Iowa getting ahead in this game, and then the clock just slipping away on Kent State, not being able to move against Iowa's defense. So right now that Iowa's scoring a lot of points because they're getting a lot of short fields, turning over the ball. They're turning over the ball on their defense at an incredible rate so far this year. So I would, if that continues, my over is going to be shot, or my under is going to be shot. Over's going to hit, but I'm going to bet not and say under 56.5. I'm going to say one line that stinks to me. I don't know if any of you guys like it. But it's the Nevada -2 at Kent State. I don't get that. Kansas State's quarterback is out. I would think that Nevada would be favored by a little bit more, but I'll just leave it at that. You can take that game however you like, but those are my 3 locks, and then the one that stinks there, do with it as you will.
All right. Thanks, James. I'll go next if you guys don't mind quickly. My 3 locks, number 1, Charlotte 4.5. All the reasons we already talked about. I'm really high on Charlotte this week, as I have been the first 2 weeks of the year so far, and it's panned out well. Number 2, this goes against everything that I've ever done when betting on college football, and that's taking Kansas I'm taking Kansas plus 18 at home. That's a lot of points to cover. And as we talked about, they looked surprisingly decent against Coastal. That new quarterback, he can run the ball, he can throw the ball. New coach, I might get burned, but Baylor, their quarterback, he moved over to Utah. They're gone. They didn't look as sharp as they normally have been in the past. I'll take my chances with Kansas plus 18 at home. And then Liberty minus 27 at home against Old Dominion. Liberty's quarterback, he's going to be top, first, maybe even top 10 draft pick. And the guy's a stud. Hugh Freeze has that offense running on all cylinders. They move the ball fast. They score quickly. They'll score more than 4 touchdowns easy and quickly. And Old Dominion, they lost to Wake Forest by 32 already this year. And they didn't even play a 2020 season. So these first 2 games are their first 2 games in 2 years. So give me the Flames minus 27.5. And a line that stinks, I'm going to go back to that Alabama minus 15.5, or I should say Florida plus 15.5. At what point in time are you going to get a number 11 in the country team getting 15.5 points at home? Well, there's a reason for that, and I don't like it. So I'm going to stay away from that game too. There's my 3 that I like and 1 that stinks. How about you, Dev? What do you got?
First game I like is Colorado minus 3 at home against Minnesota. It's a 1 p.m. start, 1 p.m. Eastern start, which means that it's a 11 a.m. early start out there. I feel like Minnesota is going to get off to a slow start, especially in that altitude. It's just when you're not used to it, it really does affect the game and affect those players. And I think it's going to cause some issues for them. And Colorado's playing really well right now. Almost pulled off a win against Texas A&M last week. Second game I like is I mentioned it earlier, Virginia plus 8. Anything over 7, like I said, take them. It's actually one I'm very heavy on this week personally. And then the other game I like is the over 56 in the Michigan State Miami game. I just think Michigan State's defense isn't as good as the public or Vegas thinks. They've been an under team the last few years. This year, it's much different. The defense isn't nearly as good. Their offense is highly improved. And I believe in Michigan State's last 6 games, they're 6-0 on the over. The over has hit 6 times in a row in their games, getting back to last year. So some value on the over. I'm sprinkling that for 1 unit. And a line that stinks to me, I think Michigan minus 27 is a stinky. That seems too easy to me. They're playing well. Northern Illinois is a very bad football team. I know they beat Georgia Tech on the road, but Rocky Lombardi is a bad quarterback. Michigan State fans know that firsthand. They've been a mediocre, if not poor, MAC team in the past couple of years. I don't know. Michigan, it just seems too easy to me. Coming off a big win, Michigan is as well. That line stinks. I'm staying away.
All right, Jordan, finish us off.
All right, I will say that I feel way overly confident on these 3 picks, so that could be a bad thing or it could be a really good thing. So let's get into it. Like I mentioned earlier, Auburn, Penn State under 53. You guys know my thoughts on that game. I'll move on to my next bet, which is Fresno State, UCLA over 62. Fresno's offense looks pretty good. I know they played a tough Oregon team week 2, and I think they scored 24 points. And Oregon's defense is a lot better than UCLA's. I think they score a little bit more than that. And you guys have seen UCLA this year. They look very good offensively, especially. I see this game as 48-28 over hits with ease. I know some money's came in on the over, so the line's changed a little bit. I think it's at 63.5 now, but I'd still take it. Anything under 70, I honestly like it. So let's roll with that. And my last play, which is my favorite play, one of my favorite plays of the week, Boise State -3 against Oklahoma State. Here's some betting trends for you. I got the last 9 games for Oklahoma State. 2-7 against the spread. And the first 2 weeks, they were double-digit favorites. They failed to cover a spread both weeks. So we're rolling with Boise at home. You guys know the blue field. They'll be fired up. Boise, last 6 games at home, 5-1 against the spread. Lock in Boise -3. I think it's 3.5 by the hook. Make it -3. And let's ride.
All right, love it. I'll recap these really quick. Travis, Liberty -27.5, Charlotte +4.5, Kansas +18, Jordan, Boise State -3, UCLA, Fresno over 62, Penn State, Auburn under 52, Dev, Colorado -3, MSU, Miami over 56, Virginia +9, and James, Marshall -9, UCF -7, Iowa under 56.5. You guys heard it here first on the Siege podcast. Let's go cash these tickets. That'll do it for us today on the first ever episode of the Siege podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PickSiege. If there's a game you'd like to see in the future, have us talk about, or any lines that you like, feel free to send us a message. We'll talk about it here. We'll be back next week. Thanks so much.